Welcome to the Former Fat Friend podcast. I'm Kasey.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Allie. And together we've lost over 370 pounds. We all know what it's like to be the fat friend. And now we are sharing the ins and outs of our weight loss journeys.
Hello, happy podcast day.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Favorite day of the week. And today is extra special because we have a guest. And it is not just any guest. It is our host, Allie's mom, Suzanne.
It's so weird to hear you refer to her as Suzanne to me. Like Kasey said Suzanne earlier, and I was like, are we all adults?
We are so happy you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk to us. I think for those who don't know, Suzanne had gastric bypass surgery how many years ago?
17.
17 years ago. So what?
2006, I figured out tonight.
Okay, that's incredible.
I have gotten a few messages from people about not hearing a lot of success stories, like long term, as you see people on social media that have had surgery within the last 5 years or so, and that's fantastic. But one person in particular said she's like really never seen someone have long-term success. She's only known people who have failed. And immediately I have the benefit of thinking about you and how successful you've been on it. So do you mind just kind of starting off by telling us a little bit about like where you started and kind of, we call it like your stats, like what were you before and how did gastric bypass change your weight?
You know, some of my stats are fuzzy now because I don't even remember them. But I had to sit down tonight and figure out what year it was because I don't even always know. I mean, I always tell my doctors and stuff when they ask your history, but I never was even sure of the date. But I can remember the very first activity that I went to that was like a big family event after surgery, which was my oldest daughter's graduation in May or June of 2007. So I know I had it in December of 2006 then. So when I initially started looking into bariatric surgery, I didn't have a BMI that was high enough to get it. It was a little bit like your story, Kasey. I was maybe 3 or 4 points below what the automatic being able to get it was. But because I had comorbidities, I had diabetes, and I was having trouble with my diabetes being able to be controlled. The medicine wasn't working very well. One of the doctors had suggested it, and I had done everything to try to lose weight. I had been on every diet known to man. I had been on Dexatrim. I had been on probably what was speed from a doctor years before that just hyped me and never lost anything. I had worked with a personal trainer for months before my surgery and nothing was moving. So there weren't even very many hospitals that did the surgery, certainly not near me. And it was so new that I was afraid to go to somebody that was just starting out. So at the time, I found this place called, I think it was called Bariatric Surgery Centers of America, and they were all over the country in different places. And that's all they did.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going where they do it all the time, and that's all they do. And they're set up for people like me. So I drove, it was almost an hour and a half every one way that I would drive to my appointments and to my surgery and, you know, the appointments that you have after surgery. So I think I'm 5'9". I was probably close to 280 or between 260 and 280, somewhere in there. And I don't know exactly what my BMI was, but they approved me for surgery after I had to go to a psychiatrist. I had to go to a internist.
That's interesting. I thought the psychiatrist was relatively new thing. I didn't realize they've been doing that forever.
Oh, yeah. They wanted to make sure I didn't want to go to Cancun and wear a bikini one summer. And that was the reason I was having it.
Wouldn't be a bad byproduct, but yeah.
Yeah. They wanted to make sure I was in it for the long.
Yeah. So you were around 280, started the process. I actually don't remember any of this because I have no memory. But how quickly and what did you lose after having surgery?
I actually came home from the hospital with normal blood sugars with no medicine, but weighing 1 pound more just from all the fluids and everything. But the funny thing was my diabetes immediately reversed, even with no weight loss at that time.
Wow. So cool.
And so, yeah. And then it came off very quickly. I mean, but I couldn't eat. Like my plan coming home was way different than your all's. I could not have anything but liquids and like these little protein, almost like a little shot glass things that were like test tubes
Oh,
that
interesting.
were like a jello-y shot that we could have. And I think brought for like weeks, seems like.
Yeah, I
to
want
me.
to talk about the process a little bit more, but what did you get down to? Do you remember?
My very lowest weight, I think, was about 165.
Wow.
And right now I am a 170.
That is incredible.
I went up to as high as 180. I was actually living at about 180, 182, very comfortably, doing absolutely nothing to control, like just living my life, eating what I wanted to eat. But I kind of pick better things now. But I mean, I occasionally have things I probably shouldn't have, but
There's
in
no
moderation.
should. There's no should or shouldn't. We make different choices at different
Yeah.
times. Life is
Yeah.
about balance.
Well, there's things that make me sick sometimes. So that's what I mean
Well.
sometimes. But it's funny because sometimes things that make me sick one time don't make me sick another time.
Mhm.
So it kind of just depends,
So you lost over 100 pounds, sounds like, relatively quickly. I'm curious, though. So you mentioned that your doctors suggested bariatric surgery because of your diabetes that wasn't well controlled with medication. Had you heard of bariatric surgery before that?
I don't believe I had. I think and I don't even remember now which doctor suggested it, but I went to an internist who told me at that point, he said, look, you have done everything you could do. At the time, he knew I was working with the personal trainer. He had talked to the personal trainer. I was working out with him 3 days a week for an hour before school started because I was a school teacher and logging all of my food. And they said, I have never seen anybody work so hard and lose nothing.
That's so
And
frustrating.
the internist told me that he believed that it didn't matter what I did, I was going to gain weight.
Wow.
So he said, if you don't have gastric bypass, you're not going to lose weight.
So was that hard, though, to make the decision to have such a big surgery without knowing anyone who had done it or seeing anyone be successful?
Actually, right at the time I had it, my sister's best friend's mother died from having the surgery.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was difficult knowing that, but there was no decision for me.
Hmm.
I had family members that tried to kind of guilt me into, you have 3 little girls at home. What if something happens to you like this? And I just kept thinking, I'm going to die anyway. I'm too big. I'm going to die from that. And then my 3 little girls won't have a mother. I need to do something so that I can be here long term.
Yeah. Wow.
I swear, I
So-
said I wasn't going to cry today.
And she's crying already.
I actually remember, not for nothing, I don't remember anything, obviously, about any of my life, but I do remember listening to a phone call that you had with Mama, my grandmother. And I remember you saying, I would rather be a fat mom than not be able to be a mom at all. And I think it was this like going back and forth on like, am I making the wrong decision? But I'm so glad that you made it.
Me too. It has made a world of difference. And I didn't have, I did go to there was a support group that met at my church that just happened to be in the area. I did go to that group one time. I still am friends on Facebook with one of the girls from that group, but I have to tell you, it was so hard to go to that meeting. And then luckily I'd already had the surgery, or I probably wouldn't have been very happy because every person in that room practically was like greenish gray. Their coloring was awful. They were just so unhealthy, I think.
Hmm.
But I think that
After
they were
having
so much
surgery?
older. Yeah.
Okay.
And they'd lost a good bit of weight, the people, but they just were still heavy. They still weren't healthy looking. And at the time I thought, oh my gosh, have I made a huge mistake? But I mean, it was like no time. And I just looked like a different person. There was just no comparison.
Yeah.
And they used to ask me, those people asked me, why do you look like your coloring is so good? But I think they had so many other comorbidities when they actually finally had it.
Mhm.
And they were much older than me. They were
Mhm.
probably in their 50s or 60s when they had it. And I don't think it went real well.
I mean, it makes sense that I think at that time it was probably like people's situations were like kind of dire to have bariatric surgery. Now I think it's a lot more, for a lot of us, for all 3 of us here, I think it was much more preventative than it was like, you're in dire straits and this is kind of a last resort.
Right. Right.
I do want to talk about your physical experience a little bit because it is so different than what we experienced. So talk to us a little bit about like the actual physical surgery that you had.
I mean, it was rough. You came home like the first day, right?
The next day. Lisa was like
overnight.
6 hours or something, right?
My surgery was at like 7 something and I was home by like 5:30.
They did get me up the first day, but I had Roux-en-Y. And I had a couple of choices at the time. I probably didn't have the same choices you had because they probably didn't have those same choices at the time, like the gastric sleeves and stuff like that. None of that was available at the time I had it. But I talked to the doctor and I said, I want the one where I'm not going to fail because I have failed at too many things. I want it to work. So give me all you got. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we went with Roux-en-Y because they said it wasn't going to fail, that I was going to be successful.
Was it done laparoscopically or was it, do you had?
No.
Okay. So it was an open surgery. Wow. Okay.
I remember laying after surgery that first day, I could take a few sips of something and they let me get up, but it was big surgery.
You were like
big
breastbone or like, wasn't it like breastbone to belly button, right?
Well, that was more when I had the skin removal. I don't even remember now how bad the surgery was for that. I think I had a pretty much like a vertical scar on my stomach for the gastric bypass, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But after I lost all the weight, I had so much skin hanging on my legs from my stomach that I couldn't even hardly walk or anything. I couldn't work out because it would just hit me. It was awful.
Oh, wow.
So I had plastic surgery to remove some skin. And so there was so much skin to remove. It was funny because I lost all my scars practically in that surgery, traded them for new ones.
Yeah. How far after bariatric surgery were you when you had plastic surgery?
I had gastric bypass in December, and I think it was in June that next year.
Oh, wow. So that was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because I was so hindered by it.
Yeah.
There was nothing you could do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They took 12 pounds of skin off.
Whoa.
Holy
Skin
cow.
laying on the table weighed 12 pounds.
I can't
course,
wait
that's
for my
the
loose
same
skin
weight.
to weight.
Yeah, don't worry about that. You don't lose weight.
I know, but I
Lose
just
it.
like
It's like when you have a baby, you have like an 8-pound baby and an 8-pound placenta and you come home weighing more than you did when you went in. It's like, well,
Your body's like, joke's
I'm
on
like,
you.
this really is not fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, 12 pounds of skin was on the table.
Wow. That is crazy. And how was that pretty life-changing once you recovered from that?
Oh, yeah. I can remember going to the beach in the years after that, and I wore, a mom bikini, like a skirted kind of bikini and stuff. That was kind of what was in at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I would see people kind of looking at my scars, and I'd be like, honey, this is good. So, you can look at this scar all you want, because they were probably like, oh my God, cover that up. And I'm like, I'm cut here to here. I don't even care.
Yeah.
You've always been good about that. I don't really remember a lot of you pre-surgery, to be honest. I don't remember a lot of being young, but I wish that I had that level of confidence. It's something that I work on because you have always been like, if you're looking at me, that's your issue. I don't, I love this, what I'm doing for myself.
Nobody likes it, but I think once you've had gastric bypass and you've had a little bit, I probably would not have had plastic surgery if it hadn't been for the skin was in my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was starting to get like infections and stuff from the, it being sweaty and everything. So it was just not something that I could live with. And let me tell you, gastric bypass we paid for out of pocket because it was not covered by insurance. And my plastic surgery, I paid for out of pocket. So, that was a lot of money in 1 year's time to put toward surgery, but it changed my life.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me that the same person who had 12 pounds of loose skin removed is the same person who didn't qualify for the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
But to be fair, I carried every bit of my weight in my stomach because my legs are actually worse post-surgery, all the surgeries, because now my legs, which had always been super thin, super athletic looking, now I have a little bit of cellulite at the top And the doctor told me it was because when they took all the fat out of my stomach and took it, and took the skin off, and that was where my fat accumulated, that your body finds another place to gather fat. So that's why people who have gastric bypass and or skin surgeries, then maybe their arms get a little heavier, or their butt gets a little heavier, because the fat.
Do you promise?
Somewhere.
I was not warned.
Do you promise I can have a butt?
It didn't help my butt. Yeah.
No, we are very much the same in the frog put on pants department. Yeah. I have never heard that, actually. That's really interesting to me.
Okay.
Also, looking at you, no one would ever think you had cellulite on your legs. So
it's hard when you've had that was your thing for years. Because when I was heavy, I still had good legs.
I think I told you guys before that my mom used to wear clogs to work, like these really thick bottom things. And my little sister, like really like well-meaning, one time compared her to a cow. She thought she looked like hooves. You look like a cow or something. And my mom was like, what? Like, that is so horrible. And she's like, no, because your legs are so skinny and you have these like hoofs on the bottom. And like, but she meant it like as you have skinny legs, but it just didn't. Again, per Emerson, you can't compare people's bodies to animals.
When you call a person a cow, there's really only one thing people hear, and it's the word cow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to hear cow and my name in the same sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to us a little bit about the way you ate, dieted, your life before, food life.
I mean, I ate anything. I mean, and your father and I were real big snackers, and I think too, after we started dating and got married, he always had to have two snacks at one time. Like he had to have pretzels and Doritos. And that was new to me.
So kind of guy.
Oh, you mean we're going to have two snacks at the same time? So I think after getting married too, especially, I put on a lot more weight after that.
Yeah. And
then having babies, 3 right now, that helped too.
And then did you diet a lot before gastric bypass?
Oh yeah. Weight Watchers. I even went to I would go to the meetings, make the meals. I went to a doctor that was in our county who was called the diet doctor. And that was where I think I got the speed. They gave you like 4 pills in a thing, and you had to take these 4 pills every day. They were in unlabeled bottles. I didn't even know they were all together. Yeah.
I've done sketchy things
that
like
I think
that
back on it. I remember taking Dexatrim as a kid.
As a kid?
I was always as a teenager. You could buy it in the grocery store.
Is Dexatrim the thing you were phentermine, Lisa? Is that what you were talking about?
I took phentermine.
I don't know.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I took phentermine. I mean, I tried everything. And I was always, even when I was skinny, I was always bigger than everybody else. I have been 5'9" since 5th grade. When I moved in 6th grade, they thought I was the student teacher coming in to teach, and I was a student because I came in mid-year. So even when I was a twig, people thought I was huge because I was so much taller than everybody else. And I really didn't. I was thin all the way through. I mean, I think I wore like a size 16 when I got married, 14 or 16. So I wasn't huge, but I was heavy at that point. And then it just got worse and worse every year. And that was all the cyclical dieting, I think.
Yeah. And so
it made it worse.
So what is life like now that you're, fast forward, and obviously post-surgery, your diet is weird. You're on liquids and you can't really tolerate that much. But now you're many, many years out. What were those years in maintenance like compared to the years of dieting pre-surgery?
Oh, well, I was so much happier with food because I didn't have to fight. I had such a love-hate relationship with food because everybody in my family is very good cooks. And we used to say, you don't get to be this size if you don't have a good cook in the family. And so we always had really good food. So it was really hard because you wanted to eat the stuff, but you knew you shouldn't. And
I'm sorry.
Are you okay?
I was really confused.
I guess it's my turn to cry. I don't know what's going on. I just listening to you talk. You're so far post-op and you're saying all of these things of this, it just gives me, I don't know, not that I didn't have hope, but it makes me think wait, this really can last. And I started to cry when you said, I just didn't want to fail. You had these same feelings 17 years ago that I'm having now. And you've maintained it. And It just is apparently a little overwhelming for me today. My apologies.
Don't apologize. This is why I wanted you on.
I remember saying to Allie her post-op, don't freak out if you gain just a little bit because your body's got to find its happy place.
Oh.
And
you don't know how timely that is for all of us right now.
Yeah, because I mean, was I thrilled to be down at 165? Oh yeah, I thought I really hit the. But I was also really happy at 180 because I mean, there were still things that maybe I was like, oh, maybe I should lose a little bit more because then I could maybe put that dress back on again or something or wear that. And like for me, I have always, always, always been a Lily Pulitzer lover. And I remember I could never wear any of her clothes. There was not one thing, nothing for a fat person, nothing. And when I first started losing, I can remember one summer I went and they had a sleeveless shirt at this one store and it was stretchy so I could get it on. And I think I might have worn it one time. I still tried it on just the other day. The same lime green Lily Pulitzer sleeveless little polo shirt. It doesn't look good on me, but I can still get it on and I just keep it because it was my first piece. And then after that, I had lost enough and I was like, oh, it was like the angels were singing, like, oh my God, I can wear Lily stuff. Oh. And that's my motivation is making sure I can stay in my Lily, things.
Yeah.
So it does make a difference for you.
What did you find were like some of the biggest hurdles as you were getting, because I would imagine obviously it didn't happen overnight that, your relationship with food changed and how you treated your body and how you approach things?
I think actually immediately, once you can actually start eating, not during the liquid period, but once you can start eating, I think you're so happy from the weight loss that it doesn't even matter that you're denying yourself from what you were before. As you started to go on, I can remember there was probably a good 6 or 8 months in there that I lived on sugar-free vanilla lattes from Starbucks. I was getting like 4 a day.
Oh,
because
wow.
I got my protein. And I didn't care if I ate as long as I got my lattes. Mm-hmm. And I would go in and get those. We didn't have a lot of options for protein like you guys do. There was not protein bars. There was not, probably the weightlifters had like protein powders and stuff, but we didn't have NutriBullets. We didn't have those little things to make smoothies. Yeah. You had to have your big, blender and stuff. So to me, that was a really good way to get a lot of protein. I tolerated it well. I felt full and I was happy doing that. Once I really started adding food back, because I feel like I'm a fairly decent cook and I enjoy it. That's my love language is cooking and, making things for people.
Does that sound familiar?
I just made what I wanted to make. And then I kind of played this game with myself. Like when I would go out to dinner, I would get my stuff and I would ask them for a box almost immediately. I would take half of it or 3/4 of it and put it in the box. And then I would eat what was left. And then that way I could take for lunch tomorrow or have for dinner the next day what I had put away. And I found that I was full. So I didn't usually go back into the box and try to get any more, which would never have happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's kind of how I do it. When I'm craving something, when I want to make something, I still make it. I might eat 3 or 4 bites of it sometimes, and that's it. Especially, I don't know if Allie told you, but I started taking Ozempic recently. That's why I'm down the extra 18 pounds from the 180. I'm actually back down now to 170, and I think I was 188 when I started taking it. I had called my doctor because I was starting to go back up a little bit, and I was doing everything that I had been doing, and my diabetes, my blood sugars were out of control a little bit. And I said, this one medicine you've got me on is not working. Do you have any other suggestions? Do we need to up it? She goes, have you thought at all about taking Ozempic? I said, oh, my good friend just started taking that. I said, she's doing really well on it. And she goes, let's try it for you. And so she prescribed it for me and I started taking it. I couldn't believe the difference right away of how little I wanted to eat. So that's been my last, 3 or 4 months has been on that.
And has it helped get the blood sugar back in control for you?
Oh yeah, I'm completely, and I'm not even on a particularly high dose. I think I'm just on the second dose or maybe.
Okay.
And my blood sugars have been, I mean, they went from being 130 fasting to like 108 and sometimes under 100.
That's great.
So,
Mom, you talked about, I don't know if it was when we were recording or not, but you talked about being kind of an open book with this. Was getting to that place a hurdle for you?
I have always been open about it. I even told my work what was going on. They weren't real happy about it because I was a school teacher. And I had a principal at the time who wasn't very accommodating to me. And so she kind of tried to make it really rough on me, but I didn't care. I told, because I thought, it's not like people are going to look at you and not realize you had something done. For heaven's sakes, you're losing 100 pounds. So, I mean, because back then people didn't just lose 100 pounds for no reason. And I actually had a very good friend at the time who ended up being like a really good friend of mine who had the surgery before I did. And I had moved to a different school, so I hadn't seen her for a while. And I ran into her at the store and I said to her, "You look fantastic. What did you do?" And she goes, "Oh, I had my gallbladder out." I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Darn, they took my gallbladder out after my first baby." I didn't know me anyway, but I didn't say anything. And it was funny because I actually went back to her school, started working there. We got much closer. And one day, and she told me, and I go, "I knew you had to have done something else." Well, she lost like 100 pounds doing that. Darn if she didn't lose 100 pounds after she had told everybody at the school that she'd had her gallbladder out and that was why she looked so much better. And then she had to have her gallbladder taken out.
Oh, no.
Oh, you have to?
Did you feel a lot of those pressures in terms of like fear of regain and being able to keep the weight off?
I might have had some at the beginning, but really, I have led this just carefree weight life since then that I don't worry about it. You know, I mean, when it started creeping up here this last few months, but my blood sugar was also creeping up at the same time. And I believe that's why it was creeping up. Because when I tell you, really, I could stay between 178 and 182 and not do one thing, nothing. I mean, sometimes I'd walk and so then I'd get down to like 178. But my weight would fluctuate between there and I could be a normal person. You know, when I work 3 days a week, I would stop and get McDonald's for breakfast or, eat part of it and then, make dinner as normal. I mean, I just don't worry about it anymore. So I feel like you don't have the same worries once you've maintained it for so long and you're healthy, I mean, my biggest concern usually is, am I taking too much Advil because I'm not supposed to take it? Like, because when you get older, things hurt.
Yeah.
And I just, I have an arthritis. And so I need, sometimes I need some pain medicine.
It doesn't matter how much bone broth I make. She won't take me up on it.
So I'm curious. I don't know if you know this, but I did not tell a lot of people in my real life. Obviously, I share on Instagram, which is a totally different thing. But in real life, it's not something that I really like to share that openly with people. And I know you said that you were pretty open with it in the beginning, but now that you're so far out, does it even like come into play in your interactions in social settings? Or is it like so far removed from your mind that you don't even think about it?
I actually got brought up again when I started working at the hospital where I work now, which would have been about 4.5 years ago. I work in labor and delivery. So in the morning when we give report about the patients that are coming in, a lot of times people will say, this patient had gastric bypass, their BMI is this, because they always share their BMI, what the plan is for the patient that day and stuff. And I can remember sitting up front one day after we'd had report and some of the doctors were talking about, you believe that person had gastric bypass or something like, and she was still a very big person, but of course she was pregnant too.
Sure.
And, so one day I said to somebody, well, I had gastric bypass. And they went and looked at me and they go, you don't look like you had it. I said, well, I did. And then with that, one of the nurses who's my age goes, I had it too. And I was like, you did? Like we didn't.
Oh,
so there were
wow.
like 3 or 4 of us. And then my manager had it too.
Wow.
So it was like 3 of us in my age group had it.
Yeah.
And so we were all, pretty much still small.
That's awesome.
Smaller.
And probably those 2 other people would have internalized and not said anything and probably hadn't for quite some time before you arrived there. That's sad to me.
Probably.
But I'm glad that they felt comfortable enough to share.
That's what, my good friend's taking the Ozempic now and she has lost almost 30 pounds or he has lost 30 pounds already. and she's been on it for like 3 or 4 months, which is
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
And she's doing great. And she got so mad the other day because somebody said to her, what did they say to her, Allie? Do you remember? They saw her and they were like, I forget what they said to her, but it was kind of like, you look good, but they couldn't figure out why or something. I said, look, I'm telling you right now, don't even expect it till you get to at least 60 pounds. Because I said, I remember running into somebody when I had lost 60 pounds and they go, did you get a haircut? Yeah, I cut 60 pounds of hair off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's what I did.
See, now
People can't figure it out.
they can't, but now these days people are a lot more hesitant to comment on bodies. There's a lot more cautiousness when it
Yeah.
comes to that. So not with like more with people of like younger generations. I have friends that are like, can I tell you you look good? Or they like won't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I saw a friend recently for the first time in 2 years. And the last time she saw me, I weighed 110 pounds more than I do now. And I went, hey, you can comment on my body. She was like, okay, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to or not, but oh my God, you look amazing. Like they're just scared to say anything. I know. I'm like, no, I worked hard. Tell me I look good.
Yeah.
It is, but it's also like you don't want them to say something when it's the other way around.
Of course.
You know? Like,
No,
I
you do.
actually
you've
like
gotten
it, but
super fat lately.
right, what's wrong with
up?
you? Going through something?
Oh, are you pregnant?
Oh,
I got
oh
that
no.
all
I got
time.
that at 155 pounds like 6 months ago.
Really?
Well, and
And I never got it as a bigger person. I
Oh.
think because it always just looked, but like now because of my skin and like my little pooch situation, I don't know.
Mhm.
Lady in Turkey asked me if I was pregnant in security line.
oh,
It was
solid.
cool.
That-
Yeah.
I taught third grade, and the last couple of years I taught, Taylor one day, Allie's older sister, brought me lunch on the first day or first week of school just to be supportive or whatever. So she was standing on the playground with me, and this third grader who I had in my class came up to me and said, Mrs. George, are you pregnant? And I saw Taylor go, oh my God, like she died. And I said, no, I'm not. And then she came up later and asked me again. And I said to her, no, I'm not. So the next day we go to the playground, she asked me a third time.
Listen,
And I
kid.
finally said to her, honey, I don't want to hear Mrs. George and pregnant in the same sentence again.
If I get pregnant, you'll be the first to know.
She goes, I love your dress. And I said, okay,
Oh.
I'll take that.
You may proceed.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
too funny.
You mentioned Taylor, and you have 3 daughters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious, what was it like experiencing life overweight and having these girls and being with them and their weight loss struggles as a mom?
Well, for me being heavy, it was awful. I worked my butt off. Like I was a school teacher. I ran the timing system for Maryland for swimming for years, and I did all that heavy. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. I drove to swim practice every night. I would teach, pick them up, go, or go pick them up at swim practice, sometimes even 45 minutes to an hour drive back and forth. I mean, I killed myself sometimes because I didn't want them to miss out on stuff just because I was fat. And, I got in the water with them at the beach. I did everything. I got in the pool with them. I got in a bathing suit in a town that I taught in. People saw me in a bathing suit when I was heavy, but you have to do it because I didn't want them to miss out on stuff. And I was a volunteer. So I did, everything I could that they allowed parents to volunteer for. And if I didn't do it, then their dad did it. And if that didn't happen, then my mom or dad did it with them. So everybody got to, experience everything. Now, when they started struggling, I feel like I was probably supportive. I don't remember. I would have never said anything mean about their weight because I lived it. I would have maybe asked if they had resources or if they needed resources. I don't think I even mentioned to any of you all about having surgery, did I?
You didn't. This is so intriguing to me because you didn't. And I don't know how you didn't. Not that I wish you had. I'm glad you didn't. But.
Well, you all knew you knew I would support it.
Oh,
So
for sure.
Maybe I didn't have to say it.
It was never that you wouldn't support it, just that honestly, it wasn't even on my radar for me. Mom was a Division I athlete as well. She swam. But after that, fitness is not really your cup. You don't love working out, right? Like,
No.
and so I always
love to walk.
Yeah.
I walk when I go to the beach. Like I would do 30 miles in a week at the beach
Oh, wow.
on the sand walking because I love it, but I don't.
You did buy Peloton shoes too, so that counts.
But
Actually,
just the
I
shoes.
loved the Peloton workout, but I had a huge flare up of my arthritis and then I couldn't.
Well, it's also, I mean, yeah, you were starting at 60 with that. It's intense and stuff. But yeah, I always kind of thought that wasn't really for me because I didn't have, you were diabetic. You had, I think, high blood pressure going in and there were other concerns. I never had any of that. So in my head, it wasn't, I hadn't considered it really until I did. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. You know how my brain works. And it would be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course it does.
I was more fearful of you two having surgery than of me having surgery. That worried me more than, I don't remember ever much worried about it for me as much as I did worried about it for you all. I'm glad I didn't know real far in advance because I didn't have to worry about it real long.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I told you within a few weeks. My older sister didn't. And that's why I'm the favorite.
Your surgery came pretty quickly though.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't a secret keeper.
Yeah, I didn't know this. So Taylor kept it a
Taylor
secret.
didn't tell anyone. And then now whenever she gets mad about somebody in her family not sharing something, they're like, that's rich coming from the girl who asked me to watch her kids so she could have surgery and didn't even tell me. I mean, my brother-in-law texted my dad and my stepmom and said, Taylor's out, everything's good. And my stepmom called me and was like, what is he talking about?
Oh my gosh. Wait, but Allie, you knew.
I knew. So she told me, but it took a while for her to tell me because her process was very quick. She started in January and had surgery in 3 weeks after me in March.
Oh, wow.
So she was very fast and she was really upset, like worried that I would be jealous because she knew I had finished all of my requirements by like November for my surgery. And they were like, okay, we'll be in touch in 6 months to schedule something. And I was like, what? Like, that's unacceptable. And she knew I was like trying to get answers for things that I wasn't getting answers to. And I was frustrated and I'm calling them every day and whatever. And so she was like, I got to tell you something and you can't be mad at me, but I'm also doing this and I might have surgery before you. Okay. But it ended up being good that she did tell me because we could go through that part together. I remember her saying people were worried that they could never have in her classes. They said something about like never having fast food again. It's off. You're never allowed to have it. And she was like, listen, I'm not attached to it. I don't know that I care too much, but I don't want to be told I can't have something like that. Like that's something that should fit into a normal lifestyle somewhere. And I remember being like, Taylor, look at mom. Like, mom, you just said you've had McDonald's, whatever. Like, I think we were talking about this with Carolyn.
I to make better choices at McDonald's than I did before. And I listen to my body and stop if I'm full.
Yeah.
But I think we had the benefit of seeing your success on this. And I think a lot of people don't see that. And then what you hear in those classes feels so overwhelming. And like you have to be, it's sort of more of that all or nothing mentality that we know doesn't work. So having been able to see you kind of find your groove or balance with this, I think is very helpful. And actually, the more we talk about it, the more I realize how helpful it is.
Yeah.
One thing I think is really interesting, I'm flipping total script here because this is my brain again, but I find this really interesting. We had talked a couple of weeks ago about relationship stuff and how Kasey, I think you said you wonder sometimes like unhelpful things like would Bill have dated me if I looked the way I did before, or would he have cared? And I said I think this will be an interesting thing because my mom met her husband long after having both surgeries, and her husband is not my father. I have a stepdad too. So she met him long after that, and Jay never knew you before at your heaviest. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would have never met him if I had been heavy. I don't think he would have even given me the time of day because he just doesn't, and sometimes I say to him, you got to be a little bit more inclusive because, I was fat before and you love me, so but it just wouldn't have been on his radar to even talk to me,
We said we all have types. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find
So-
that it been hard for you to talk to him about having surgery, or have you not? I mean, I don't know what you guys have talked about with that.
we don't talk about it. I mean, he knows I've had it. He knows that you all have had it and that, but like I cook meals that you would not necessarily be like, I try to make more vegetables now than I ever did before. But I really kind of think, other than the bad snacking all the time when we were younger, we still ate good prior to our surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had vegetables, we had good food. It was just that food didn't like me, back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I think.
Very much relate to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, because people used to say to me, I can't believe you eat good stuff.
Yeah.
Why do you? I mean, did I eat a lot of it? Probably yes. Did I eat snacks sometimes I shouldn't? Yes. I mean, like my growing up was my dad used to make popcorn at night with this big, huge kettle we had that Taylor still has. And he would make us popcorn on the stove. And that was like our bonding. We'd sit and watch TV and eat popcorn. So we always had a snack like at night when we were watching TV and stuff. So I just kind of grew up that way. And
yeah. Has Jay ever seen pictures of you from before you lost weight?
I think I showed him one time. We kind of destroyed almost all of them. My sister calls it, that cousin we hate? She's in that picture. We act like
I thought it was the fat cousin.
But,
okay, yeah, the cousin we hate.
Yeah, I gave Allie 3 of the pictures that I have from before because I don't think I even have anymore.
Wow.
And those pictures, I probably was 30, in my 30s, and I look like I'm 70. I feel like I look younger now than I did then.
Yeah. Yeah, older, younger, Zuzu. We have a joke that my grandmother has aged backwards, so she's older, younger, mom. This is older, younger, Zuzu. Which is what my kids call mom.
Suzanne, what was it like, or what has it been like now that Taylor and Allie have both had surgery and have had such incredible success, and kind of watching them go through this journey 16, 17 years after you did?
It is amazing. It's almost like we're in this little club, and we've got this little club of people that. No, but it's funny because we'll have like food conversations, and we can all share like one plate now, and stuff like that. Like we'll go and be like, "Do you want to share?" Like we'll get a sandwich and share it, or something. So it's really nice in that respect, and they know what it's like, and we share like little recipe tips. Like, oh, I like this protein pudding. I bought some of Ellie's Built bars. Unlike her, I love the puff.
Oh, yeah,
I
me
love
too.
the
I caught a lot of heat.
marshmallow. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the minority there for sure.
For me, a puff is a dessert. A bar is nourishment.
Yeah, should we talk about our feelings on Built Bars?
That's where I'm at. I'm having a bar if I feel like I need like some fuel. I'm having a puff if I'm feeling like I want dessert.
When people are having, like, I work 12-hour shifts at the hospital, and it's an hour drive there and back. So I'm a 14-hour day. That's why I get my, something to eat on the way there. Sometimes it's Starbucks, sometimes it's McDonald's. And then I usually pack my lunch, which I'll just eat over the course of a day. And a lot of times I'll pack either a protein drink or so that I can just kind of, as I'm working, I can take a couple sips and, get through my day, because I don't usually take breaks, at work.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's also been a big fan of the Flav City shakes for here and there. She was saying the other day, right? That's like your lunch sometimes at work.
I just ordered the latte too.
Oh, me too.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
I hope it's good.
I have high hopes. I just got a shipment notification today, so I'm super excited. All right, Suzanne, this has been such an interesting conversation. And I think, like we said at the beginning, it's so rare that you get to meet someone and talk to someone who's so many years post-bariatric surgery. So I'm curious, as you kind of reflect back on the last 17 years, what would you say is like the one thing that's helped you be so successful in maintaining your weight loss for that amount of time?
It's not going to be what you expect, I don't think. It's being able to fit into my Lily clothes. Really. That has been, I'm not lying. I mean, I went one time almost 100, maybe almost a full year, where I wore nothing but Lily, even Lily pajamas.
That's impressive.
Because that was my thing. It was, all my friends were able to wear Lily. I love those colors. Everything is about it is me. And I could never find anything. And that is so degrading.
Mm-hmm.
Like that you couldn't have, I couldn't even, I guess back then they didn't even have scarves, that I could tie around my turtleneck or something, And so to be able to wear those, to me, if I start inching up at all and things get tight or my Lily stuff gets tight, I worry a little bit about it, and then I'll, do something.
I love that. And my kids now, if you put on pink or like anything bright, they're like, is that Suzu's dress? Like every time. I don't know that I ever asked you if you had one piece of advice for someone that's like considering surgery or is newly post-op and maybe like going through it a little bit. What would you tell them? I'm curious to know if you told me.
I would say absolutely. If it's something you can do because of insurance or for whatever way you can do it, do it. And I would also say don't give up because it's going to come off. And it may not, like, I don't know what people's goals were when they, I surpassed every goal I had for what I wanted to, achieve. And I wasn't perfect. I wasn't as thin as they probably would have liked me to be. I mean, as a matter of fact, right now I'm 2 pounds from being a normal weight. I'm still in the overweight category, but I'll take it.
So am I. I'm a size 8. F that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I'll take it. I don't care. I'm better than I was and I'm happy where I am. So I would say go for it. You're worth it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I can't thank you enough, obviously, for life and also for leadership on this and for just kind of making this decision just so much easier for me and for kind of paving the way so that I didn't have to fight or feel uncomfortable or wonder if I was doing the right thing. And I often think I do take you for granted, but I take that for granted as well, that I have this like sort of role model for kind of advocating for yourself and learning to love yourself and just being sort of unapologetic about your choices and what you've done. So I love you and I thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that with everyone else.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
I mean, I obviously felt nothing from this, but
it wouldn't be a Former Fat Friend podcast episode if at least one of us didn't cry, right?
Yeah, you didn't ugly cry, which is better than me last week. So we'll take it.
Oh man. No, thank you so much. I am very inspired by this, and I hope other people are as well. As always, it's been so wonderful. If you want to follow us, you can do so on Instagram and TikTok at Former Fat Friend Pod. And you can find me on Instagram at Leaning Into Lisa.
I'm Allie's Losing It _RNY.
And I'm Maintaining Kasey. We'll see you next week.
Get excited. Next week is our finale.
Season 1 finale.
Get ready.